Hi everyone. We are just going to wait for 5 minutes so that everyone joins in and then we can start with the webinar. Okay, I think we can start. Hi everyone. I hope you all are safe and doing well in this pandemic. So today we are going to have a webinar on suicide prevention and we welcome you all here. So I'm just going to introduce myself first and then we'll talk about Project Let's Talk. So I am Samantha and I've been working with Project Let's Talk for over a month now. So something about Project Let's Talk. So the founders, Arani and Kashish, are 11th standard students who wanted to create awareness among young minds around mental health. And therefore, they started with this idea of Let's Talk. Today, with the help of 80 volunteers, they have conducted over 100 awareness sessions in government and private schools and impacted over 3,000 students. Project Let's Talk has also been presented at the United Nations headquarters at New York City. And today we have this webinar on suicide prevention by Ms. Shalmali Jadhav. Shalmali, we welcome you and we feel honored to have you here with us.
Thank you
Would you
so
like to
much,
introduce
Samantha.
yourself? Yes. Would you like to introduce yourself, Shalmali?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me. And whatever you told about Project Let's Talk, I would say that that's just amazing. Being 11 standard students and kind of putting all the things together and starting something which is the need of the society, I think is very important. Thank you so much for doing this because we are kind of working in the same community and for the same cause of spreading awareness about mental health. So I think this is amazing to kind of be together. All right, so hi everyone, this is Shalmali, and I'm the founder of two different organizations. One is Empathy for You, that works in spreading awareness about mental health and suicide prevention, whereas the second initiative is You Lead, which is about all things leadership, entrepreneurship, innovation, and purpose. So basically, I've been working in this field since last 2 years. I started Empathy for You in 2018. And when we started, it was just a kind of peer support group where anyone who wants to kind of vent out, share, and express can come. And we as a team used to be there to listen to the people. That is how it started. But now we are carrying out our work in three different ways. The first we do is spread awareness, create safe spaces for the people to come and talk about mental health, because there's still a lot of stigma and the taboo associated with the term mental health in the society. So that is what we are doing. The second thing we do is peer support group that we have kept intact. And the third thing is a different concept, which is called as letters of empathy. So we write letters to the people who approach us through peer support group. The only idea behind writing the letter is to make sure or kind of give support to that person and make sure that he or she is not alone in this battle of might be anything, of might be mental health issue or whatever he or she is going through in her or his life. But we as a society are there to support him or her. So that is what we are doing. And yeah, so if Samantha gives me the permission, I can definitely take you all ahead.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so yes, my screen is visible, I hope so. And everyone, if you could start your cameras, that would be really nice. So I won't just have to look at the laptop and keep on talking and talking. So if you could start your screens, or if you could just start your videos, that would be great.
Sharmili, before you start, I would just like to brief everyone about the structure of today's webinar. So
Yeah.
as it was mentioned, it is a Q&A webinar, so we'll have all the questions in the end. We went through your forms, and I think through this presentation, Sharmili will answer all these questions. And if still you feel that anything is missing, you can drop your questions in the chat box below. You can ask them at the end of the webinar in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And yes, as Shalmari said, you can turn your videos on, but please don't unmute yourself right now. You can unmute yourself at the end of the webinar.
Yeah.
Yes, Shalmari, you can start.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, this is how we are going to proceed. And this is the small agenda of what we are going to cover in this presentation of around 45-50 minutes. So first, I'm going to talk about some suicide warning signs, how you can recognize. The second is, what does a mental health condition make a person feel? Because though there are a lot of other reasons for committing suicide, but yes, the main reason it comes down to mental health issues. So we'll be also talking about what does a mental health condition make a person feel. Then we are also going to talk about what you should do when you're having those kind of thoughts. How can you reach out to other people, or how can you reach out to a professional? We are also going to see what you can do when someone reaches out to you, because this also might be the condition, like someone is coming out and telling you how you should kind of react to that person, or kind of take that person into consideration and kind of talk with that person. So we are also going to see that. What are some words that you can say to the person? I get this question asked a lot of times. Like, most of the times, you know what you want to do at that particular situation when someone is coming out and trying to tell you something. But most of the times, we don't understand how do we initiate the conversation. So what are those some of the words or some sentences that you can use? And the last one I've included is basic strategies for mental well-being, for keeping your mental health in check daily. All right, so yeah, this is the small agenda, and let's start with that. Okay, so before going ahead, I just want to ask this question to all of you. Like, how are you feeling these days? So basically, for all the webinars that I've conducted up till now, I've kept this question, I kept this slide constant, because I feel this is very important question, and most of the times we fail to do that. We fail to check upon each other's. So I definitely feel that, since the lockdown started, or since the pandemic started, it was like 3 to 4 months initially we were supposed to sit at home. We were confined to one place, and that was home. And suddenly after 3-4 months, we are supposed to go out, rush back to work, offices, everything. So that's kind of a 360-degree shift change that we are going through, and we are still trying to get back to the new normal. So I would love to ask this question to everyone: how are you feeling these days? You can write down your answers in the chat box. Okay. Okay. Any other answers? Okay, fine. Feeling boring since the quarantine started because no office, no work, no sports. Okay. So this has been a constant answer. Like they are feeling bored, not understanding what to do since after a long we are having a lot of time available in our hands. But on the other side, people were also like they're feeling happy that they are getting this time, and this was the much needed time to kind of be there with family and kind of explore yourself, your hobbies. Okay, feeling productive to some extent. Okay, as a okay as a lot of days passed without meeting friends. Yeah, it's basically a mixed emotion feeling. Sometimes I feel extremely happy, but on the other it feels frustrated. Yeah, so that's kind of a mix of emotions. Fine, and getting time for myself, for my studies and hobbies. Yeah, so that's what I said. Like we are also going to have some positive responses, but we are also going to have some negative responses. All right, thank you so much for answering that. And yeah, let's move ahead. Okay, I'm getting answers. Getting more time to focus on myself and being productive. True that. Okay, all right. So yeah, this is the first thing that we want to discuss is about some suicide warning signs. So here I've listed down some of the suicide warning signs. Obviously, there are a lot of them, and there are something that I've not listed over here also. But yes, these are the prominent ones. The first one is talking about wanting to die. So if you are around that person, the person constantly keeps on grieving and constantly keeps on talking about, I just don't want to leave. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to kind of, um, be a burden on others or be a burden on my parents' shoulders or something like that. So looking for a way to kill oneself. Again, the person is constantly on the outlook of the options to kill herself or himself. Talking about having no purpose. These are the signs that I've included from one of my sisters, what I saw about what happened with her. I shall tell you the story as we move ahead so that you will get to understand that better. So, talking about being a burden to others, there are also extreme mood swings. This is what I've seen in my sister. Um, 5 minutes earlier, she used to seem very happy and kind of being with us, sitting in a family, and extremely, and suddenly after 5 minutes, she just wanted to be with herself. She used to go to her room, lock herself, and be there. So I've seen this kind of extreme mood swings happening in her. So I've included this some suicide warning signs. The next is, what does a mental health condition make a person feel? So obviously there are feelings like you're getting lost. There are feelings like empty within yourself. You also feel irritable. There's hopelessness that comes in picture. There's also some painful thoughts that come to your mind, or when you are not understanding why exactly this is happening to me. You keep on thinking about the same thing, and you don't understand what exactly you're feeling. So yeah, so what should you do when you are having suicidal thoughts? So first thing I would suggest is to take medications as directed. If you are on medications not only related to your mental health issues, but if you're on medications, make sure you're taking them on time and make sure you're taking right doses. The next is avoid drugs and alcohol. When you are in this condition, or when you are in this kind of what would we say, a track, when you're coming on this track of kind of killing yourself, most of the times you'll feel the need of drugs and alcohol, and that might again cause a more a different effect, or that might show a different effect on your health again. So avoid going to drugs and alcohols. Stay hopeful is what I can say, definitely, because I know that's very tough, and I know that's very difficult, but staying hopeful or just kind of looking on the bright side sometimes also keeps you going. Most of the times we say that's like, for any situation, not only for suicide, but for any situation, a negative situation that comes in front of you, a tough situation that comes in front of you, we always say that, keep looking on the bright side, and that will definitely keep you going. So that is that really helps. And then talk to someone, obviously. Here I would love to explain two terms: reaching out and seeking help. So reaching out can be to anyone. It could be to your friends, to your parents, it could be to your family members, it could be anyone. So reaching out is for a person who you just want to share your thoughts with. But seeking help is always from a professional. So most of the times people use these terms interchangeably, and that is why I thought, like, I might kind of just explain you the thin line that passes between these two terms. So seeking help is always from a professional. Reaching out can be to anyone, your friends, parents, your family members, anyone. Okay. So moving on to next, how should you reach out? So first thing is listen to your inner voice. That is what I've written. Firstly, ask some questions to yourself, like, how are you feeling? Why are you feeling this? From since when are you feeling this? Ask these few questions to yourself. Most of the times when you are having those thoughts, there are also some physical kind of conditions associated with that. So you might be feeling heart palpitations, you might be feeling stomach lurch, you might be feeling other health conditions, also physical health conditions. So ask yourself, get to know about yourself, like what exactly are you feeling. The next, hit up a friend or family member that you trust. Obviously the person you are with whom you're going to share everything, that person needs to be trustful. The person that should be the person who you can talk about anything and everything to. So make sure that you choose that person properly, because most of the time when you reach out, that person is just kind of listening, but he or she is not being very attentive, then there's no way. मतलब सिर्फ सुनना है इसलिए सुन रहे, that isn't kind of effective when it comes to when we are talking about suicide prevention. The third I would say is write down what you feel. That is also again important. Writing gives you the kind of clearance of the thoughts. You will clear your mind when you write down your thoughts on that piece of paper. So write down your feelings. Be clear about your needs when you're reaching a professional, or might be when you're kind of reaching out for help to anyone. Be clear about your needs. Tell them what you need. Tell what help you expect from them, and say like what you have to say, like, or is I have included in the last slide. So what you can say when you're reaching out, what you can say when you are helping someone else. So we'll see that in the last slide. Okay, so what to do when someone reaches out. So yeah, actually this is a 7 step process, but I have kind of included in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So first thing is, obviously you're going to listen to the person. When you are uh, kind of there with that person, when you're sitting with that person, when the person is talking about what that person is going through, the first thing you have to do is just listen. And when you're listening, again, as I said, don't just listen because you have to listen to that person, because that person is talking, but listen, but be attentive and then listen. Don't miss a single word out of it, because that also might be important in that. So everything that the person is telling out is important, so listen carefully to what the person is saying. The second is, I would say, is do not belittle that person. For example, most of the times if the person reveals something, we feel like, you get you give those expressions of shock or being alarmed. So don't do that, because that might take out the person's confidence of whether, whatever it might be. So the person, what the person wants to proceed ahead with telling something, that person might not do that. So don't be shocked or alarmed while you're listening something, but kind of just do not belittle that person and listen very attentively. The next is be calm and totally present. Yeah, that's what I said. Don't just listen because you have to listen. Be there and be calm and be totally present to what person is saying. Do not offer advice. Again, this is very important. Unless and until you are a professional, do not offer advice. Don't tell, do this, do that. No, you can definitely help that person by giving resources, might be encouraging that person to call a helpline, or might be kind of giving that person some resources about mental health professionals. You can definitely do that, but don't offer any kind of advice to the person. And the last one is referral, recovery, and follow. That's what I said. Referral, you can definitely refer a mental health professional to that person. Recovery, most of the times it is said that when the person is having suicidal thoughts, you shouldn't leave that person alone, because there are chances of self-harming or again there are chances of, as I said, the person is always on the lookout of options to kill herself or himself. So it is kind of recommended for not leaving that person alone, but kind of being there. But again, in this today's world, we can't kind of be sure about not leaving that person alone. So make sure at least you keep on following up with them, keep on being there constantly for them, with might be on phone, or might be having someone, or living that person with a family or something like that. So make sure that you're not leaving that person alone, and again follow. If you have encouraged that person to kind of reach out to mental health professional, or you yourself can directly take that person to mental health professional, whatever it is. So referral, recovery, and follow-up is the last step. And moving on to the next. Yeah. So what are some words that you can say to a suicidal person? Obviously, when the person is coming ahead and telling you about what he or she is going through, that person needs some kind of help from your side. So yeah, these are some of the sentences that you can use while you're listening to that person, while you are giving assurance to that person that you are there for him or her. The first thing is, I'm here to listen. I want to be here for you. Would you like a cookie is something like, kind of building up that person's mood, because when you are listening to that person, or when that person is telling you about what he or she is going through, that might go into a different mood. So kind of just lifting that person's spirit up, you can use this. You are important to me, and you are not alone. You are not alone is very important sentence, because as I said, the person feels empty, the person feels lonely, especially when the person has all those thoughts going inside, or inside their head. So it's very important to make sure or assure them in some of the way that they are not alone, but we as a community are always there to support them, and they are not alone in this battle, but we are there to support them and take them out through that. So this is very important. Okay, so now coming to some mental health strategies that you can use daily. So this is a mantra that I always use and that I always tell in all the webinars, which is called as accept, prepare, and gratitude. So maybe any situation in front of you, you can always use this mantra. The first one, what you have to do is accept. So APG, accept, prepare, and gratitude. So accept is maybe any situation in front of you. You have to accept the situation. And most of the times we fail to do that because uh, we are not kind of the people who are easily accepting the situation, because we always love this, that everything is going on very nice and in a proper track, but things always are not going to work on a specific track. You sometimes will lose track, you sometimes might fall off, so you have to get back again and start working. So this is what happens, and most of the times we fail to accept the situation, and that is why most of the problems arises. We are not able to get over that situation. So first thing you have to do is accept the situation, however positive or however negative. The second one, yes, and again, why you have to accept the situation? Because when you accept the situation, you are preparing yourselves for the worst that is going to come. You start kind of analyzing that situation and preparing yourselves for the worst that might also come. The second, prepare. So now that you've accepted the situation, start preparing yourselves. Also, while preparing, most of the times we just tend to look on the negative side. Okay, what if this happens? I might not, do this. What if this happens? I might not do that. So most of the times we have this habit of looking on the negative side of the situation. But instead, while you're preparing, just keep looking on the bright side. This is what I'll tell you again. Keep looking on the bright side, because that will definitely keep you going. And the last one, G stands for gratitude. So now, while you're accepting the situation, preparing for it, and kind of doing all these things, also make sure that you're being grateful. Be grateful for the things around you. Be grateful for the people around you. I'm pretty sure everyone might have understood the importance of gratitude and being there for others and not taking things for granted, especially in this lockdown. So yeah, this is the APG mantra that you can use maybe any situation in front of you. And now, some of the strategies that I've included in order to take care of your mental health daily. So the first one is obviously physiological regulation. That doesn't mean that means that it's related to your physical health. So when we talk about physical regulation, I mean to say three things. The first one is doing some physical exercise every day. The second thing, meditation, and the third thing, some of the breathing exercises. So first one is physical exercise. When I say this, I mean to say that you don't have to work out rigorously for 45 minutes till you sweat, but 15 to 20 minutes of physical exercise daily would also do. And now you might be thinking, like, we are talking about mental health. Why is she telling about physical health? But in your body, your physical health and your mind, they are staying together. So there's a connection, there's a link between the two. So whatever happens, they in turn have effects on each other. So make sure that you are taking care of your physical health equally, and also taking care of your mental health. The second is meditation. Again, in the times that we are living right now, it's very important to connect with our inner self to understand what's going on inside. So meditation helps you do that. Meditation helps you connect to the inner self, understand what's happening inside. And the third I said was breathing techniques. The reason I said breathing techniques, because that helps you feel calm. That is a form of grounding exercise that makes you feel calm, that makes you feel present in the moment, and that makes you feel relaxed. So that is why most of the times it is said, like, when you are not understanding what you're doing, you are just in a confusion, just close your eyes, take few deep breaths, and you'll feel okay. Yeah. So breathing exercise are also very important. When we talk about breathing exercise, I would suggest box breathing. This is what I practice daily, especially when it comes to focus and concentration. So you can just Google about box breathing, and it's really very easy for beginners too. Yeah. So that is about physiological regulation. The next thing, when we talk about self-care, um, self-care here doesn't mean that having manicure and doing pedicure, or taking bubble baths. I don't mean to say that. Self-care is what I mean about your sleeping patterns. The first thing is sleeping patterns. Especially in the youth, the sleeping patterns are totally disturbed. We don't have a track on the time when we are sleeping, and we don't have a track on when we are getting up. So it's very important to have a proper sleep schedule. The second thing is about your diet, not diet, but actually nutrition, I would say, what you eat and what amount you eat. Most of the times, again, we fall into overindulgence, excessive eating. We have this habit of, lying on the sofa in front of the TV and watching some web series and dipping in the bag of chips. So please avoid that. Try including, green leafy vegetables, fruits in your diet. Make sure you are eating healthy. The next I would say is, when we talk about self-care, I would tell this to everyone to take out at least 15 to 20 minutes, or if it comes to a minimum amount, I would say at least 5 to 10 minutes for yourself, to be just kind of be there with yourself every day, daily. And you might do the activity that you love. If you love reading, you can definitely do that. If you love journaling, you can do that. Or if you just love to sit with yourself and kind of reflect upon what happened throughout the day and analyzing over that situation, even that's something great. So make sure that you're taking out at least 5 to 10 minutes out for every day, daily, to just be there with yourself. Now again, here someone said, I mean, I got this question in the last webinar that, ma'am, I practice, or yeah, I practice self-care. I just be there with myself. I I close my room and I just sit inside with myself. That doesn't mean that you're sitting with yourself. You can, it can be in any form of the activities. If you love listening to music, if you love listening to podcasts, it could be anything. uh, the next is positive relationships. Yes, your relationships do have an effect on your mental health. So fostering those relationships is again very important, is what I said. um, Connection is very important. It might be it might be with your friends, it might be with your family, but connection is very important. Make sure that you are connecting with your family daily. Make sure you're talking with them daily. Make sure you're sitting down with them daily. I would love to ask this question, like, not a question actually, but I know this might be with most of them, most of you, in case that, just remind yourself, when was the last time you actually sat down with your grandparents and have had a heart to heart conversation with them? It's very rare these days, or with your parents also. So it's very rare these days. We actually don't even find time for ourselves. So I would say that connection play an important role when it comes to your mental health. You have to kind of make sure that you're connecting with the family. For example, in our home, it's like we are getting together for dinner together, and we are keeping our phones aside, and we are kind of connecting what happened throughout the day. So that's a time when we are together. Connect with your friends. If it's not able to meet your friends now, make sure you're at least, seeing them through video calls, or kind of having a chat with them through video calls. Make sure connecting with them. I would also say that I know this is very tough, but kind of recognize the people who are trying to pull you down and who are trying to rise you up, because everyone is going to have this kind of people in their life, and kind of keep two hands distance from the people who try to pull you down. I know this is difficult to do, but at least setting those personal boundaries when it comes to these things is very important. And the last one is managing your thoughts. When it comes to managing your thoughts, I would definitely recommend journaling, because this is what has really helped me out. So I practice journaling every day, and people have different ways of practicing journaling. For me, it's writing down anything and everything that comes to my mind. So it's not like, one day, every day I have to write one page compulsory. It's never like that. One day I write down one paragraph. Sometimes I write down just one line. Sometimes I write down 2 pages. So it's totally upon, what I feel and at that particular moment, or whatever it is. So that's how journaling works for me. The second thing I would say is self talk. And with self talk, I would love to add one word, is positive. So, positive self talk is very important. Most of the times when we are working, when we are studying, we have this habit of saying things like, Shalmali, what are you doing? Your things aren't working out. You're not able to do this. You're not able to do that. So, we have this habit of, talking with ourselves, but try to say it in a positive manner instead. That, Shalmali, you're doing good. You know, this too shall pass, or you can definitely do this. So try keeping yourselves positive, or have that positive mindset. And when it comes to managing your thoughts, I would also love to say that practice some kind of exercise that makes you feel calm and relaxed, especially when we are feeling those emotions, especially when you're feeling negative emotions. Most of the times what happens, we tend to ignore those emotions, especially when it comes to negative emotions. When you're feeling angry, when you're feeling sad, or when you're feeling low, when you're feeling depressed, you tend to ignore those emotions. But ignoring emotions won't help. Instead, it keeps on bottling up, and there will come a time when it will explode and burst, and then again it will have an effect on your health. So it might be any kind of emotion. Make sure you're acknowledging that or expressing that. Um, because as I said, like it keeps on bottling up, and it's also very important to unbottle those emotions. So make sure you are, practicing this simple strategies in your daily life. And I think that's all. Okay. So I've included a picture at the end. It's okay to be both. I can be strong and vulnerable at the same time. So talking about what you're going through or being vulnerable doesn't make you weak, but you can be strong and vulnerable at the same point of time. You can be independent and you can be connected at the same point of time. You can be anxious, but also you can be capable. You can be nervous, but you can be brave. You can be resilient, and you can definitely ask for help. So asking for help doesn't make you kind of weak, but you can be resilient and you can ask for the help at the same point of time. And she also has to say something at the end. I do not have to be one or the other, but I can be both. So it's okay to be both. And yes. So yeah, here's ending this with be strong and give the best of you to the world. Yeah. So that's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Shalmali. This really has been really informative for all of us. And I hope that all of us have picked up some or the other points from this. Really, thank you so much for this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, here are my contact details also. So if you want to contact, you can um, just drop me a WhatsApp on this number. These are my Instagram handle, Sharmili Empathy for You and New Lead India. And this is email ID. So if you want to have a chat or if you want to discuss something, you can definitely drop an email ID on this email ID.
I think we can share your details after the webinar with everyone as you'll be sending out a feedback form. So everyone has to fill that feedback form and we can send this out to them as well. So actually, before we start the Q&A session, I had a couple of questions from you to ask.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you talked about, the signs of suicidal tendencies, that how can we identify them? But oftentimes we see that there are cases where people, they don't seem sad, they don't have mood swings, but
Yeah.
suddenly we don't expect, but something happens, and yes, they do show these tendencies later on, or we realize that there was something going on with them after we have lost them. So, how do we identify these tendencies at that time, like before something happens?
Yeah. So obviously that's very true. Most of the times people don't have any kind of symptoms or they don't show any
Hmm.
kind of signs, but we get to know that that person was going through something after he or she takes that extreme step. Um, here I would love to say that most of the times, as I said, like there are mental health conditions involved, but most of the times there are also other conditions. Might be anything. Might The person might be going through a loss of someone. The person might be there might be work issues. There might be uh, performance issues. There might be issues which are happening in the family. So there are also a lot of other reasons that the person might be going through. So most of the times when it comes to this kind of reasons, what person shows is like kind of stressed, kind of lost somewhere. So most of the times, when it comes to a condition, or when it comes to the reason when mental health issues aren't involved, most of the times we don't understand what the person is going through, or most of the times we don't understand that there were no signs, and how could a person take that extreme step. So as I said, like mental health condition is not the only issue involved, or is not the only reason behind committing suicide. But yeah, there are also other reasons involved. If we talk about students, there might be performance pressure, there might be peer pressure,
Hmm.
there might be parents continuously saying you have to get good grades, or all those reasons. Because I've seen this in most of the cases. uh, and when it came to my sister's case also, I've seen that she though she was like not depressed actually, but she was stressed because of her studies. And I think this is one of the prominent reasons when it comes to students, and especially she was a medical student. So that what amount of studies is involved in the medical student or in medicine. So yeah, there might be other reasons also other than mental health issues.
All right. I have been a medical student myself, so I understand what
Yeah.
you're trying to say. Yeah. Another question is that, especially in India, we have this really common misconception that, if we talk about suicidal tendencies, or if we talk about mental health, then it is mostly that the young people are being targeted, like students, young employers. But we often see that there is a pattern of suicide in the middle ages as well, or people who have retired from their professions. So how do we, understand this concept there?
Okay, yeah, that's very true. Again, I would say is there might be a reason, there might be reasons involved, might be again, not understanding, or for example, if the person is retired, the person, or there might be family issues involved, that the, especially in India, we have this, like, the son is not kind of, cooperating with the old parents or something like that. We have all this kind of issues going on. So again, yeah, definitely there's also a pattern, especially involved in the, not in youth, but again the ages, in middle ages and in old ages also. So yeah, in spite of, mental health issues, there again, as I told you, some reasons, there might be those reasons involved also.
All right. I think that's all. So if any of you have any questions to ask, you can drop them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself one by one, and then we can, begin with the question answer round. Please feel free to ask your questions. It's a safe space. You can all be free here. So if any one of you has any questions, any doubts around the webinar, or anything you felt that is missing and you want to know about it, please go ahead. If you want to share anything about yourself, even that is most welcome. If you're not comfortable in asking in front of everyone, you can even DM us privately, either to me or to Shalmali, and we'll try to answer your questions.
Yeah, even that works. Yeah, most of the times it happens that people are not comfortable asking those questions in especially in a room of people. So definitely you can DM us. Okay, how to find a counselor? Okay, so it totally depends upon the area that you're living. If you want me to help you, you can definitely, kind of DM us on Empathy for You, because we have a list of counselors when it comes to different cities. For example, Mumbai, for example, Bangalore. So we have a list of counselors who we are in contact with. So definitely we can pass you on that list, and you can choose, a person, right person from that. Also, if you are finding it on your own, make sure that you check out that person's license, make sure you check out that person's the educational qualification, because that is also very important. Most of the times it's like, there are illegal things also going on, so make sure that you are, kind of checking out that, and then you're approaching that counselor or a therapist. You can drop us a DM, and definitely we will be, there to help you. So I think that's that will be the most suitable answer, instead of just telling you how you can, find a counselor on your own.
All right, so we have another question here from Shivangi. She says that what do you think can be done as mental health professionals to make peace within oneself?
Okay, so that's a really nice question, Shivangi. I would say that first thing that comes in picture when we talk about, making peace with oneself is all about your mindset. That's what I would say. Your mindset, or whatever it might be, your thoughts, I would say, make you, because uh, most of the times we are kind of searching happiness, or kind of searching that peace in the things outside us, when you can find that happiness within you. So kind of having that positive mindset, or kind of having that mindset, is what I would definitely recommend, to make peace within yourselves, or just be kind of balanced within yourselves. First step to do this would be, getting aware of yourselves. I know this is again a tough process. I know it's not, it's not going to happen very easily, but getting to know yourselves, knowing things about yourselves is very important. So self awareness plays a role when it comes to making peace within yourselves. Okay, this is something that is happening to me. this is what I can do to find a solution to that, or might be, this is what I'm going through. This, if I do this, that I might feel better, or whatever it is. So when you are aware, you can definitely know these things, and what we call as peace might definitely come with self-awareness. So having that kind of mindset, or making that mindset of your thoughts make you, I would say that be a guard and stand at the entrance of your mind and let the positive thoughts inside and keep the negatives outside. So I think this is very important. I don't know, because let me tell you that we can't even afford a luxury of a single negative thought. But if you keep a track on how many negative thoughts we have throughout the day, it's just out of the out of the box or out of the mind. So I would say that be that guard and stand, or to keep a filter at the entrance of your mind, which filters only positives inside, keep the negatives outside. So it's all about mindset, is what I would say.
Really well said. I hope, Shivangi, that answers the question.
Yeah.
So another question we have here is from Radhika. So Radhika asks that suicidal warning is, as mentioned by you, may possibly be the sign of frustration or something. So how can we differentiate them from suicidal thoughts or something?
Yeah, so that's a valid question, and that's a true question. When it comes to having suicidal thoughts, that might be also a sign of depression. That's very true. When it is a sign of depression, it has to last for a few days. Might be stress, or might be frustration of something. It has to last for a few days. But when it comes to few days, in the sense, I would say that it might be few hours. Also, it might be one day. Also, it might be 2 days. Also, but when it comes to having suicidal thoughts, they are you are constantly into that cycle for a long period of time now, that you're constantly feeling that, okay, this is what is happening to me, and I just don't want to leave and just don't want to kind of be a burden to others. So there's a kind of this is the main difference, is what I feel is, when it comes to having signs of stress or having signs of frustration, then that has to last for a few days. But also sometimes you might feel better. When it comes to having suicidal thoughts, um, those thoughts are always going to be there, but sometimes you also feel better, those thoughts are not there, but again it kind of comes in a rise, again those thoughts arise, and again you get stuck in the same loop. So yeah, I think this is the main difference.
Absolutely. So we have another question here. I think it's a really good question. So he
Yeah.
says that in our society, people with suicidal tendencies are considered as cowards, which is a myth. It only stresses the person more and discourages him or her to express. What can the government agencies or NGOs do more to change the mindset of the society in general and to be more empathetic towards them?
This is very nice question, and this is very true. In spite of we living in 21st century, we are not understanding how to be empathetic towards others and how to understand people. And with especially with so much of going on right now, not only pandemic, but every other day we have some negative news that falls in, and it totally gets disturbed. So that's really very true. We as organizations, we as NGOs, we as a community can kind of, as we are doing, like spreading awareness and breaking those myths, breaking that stigma, kind of doing some new projects in order to make more people, or make more people involved in that movement of spreading awareness and breaking the stigma. So this is something that we can definitely do. I would also suggest one course which is called as QPR Get Keeper course. So you are a gatekeeper if you know what exactly suicide is, what are the signs, how you can recognize a person, and that course is given by Suicide Prevention India, which is an organization situated in Bangalore. So you can definitely take a course from that, where you understand everything, and then you become a certified instructor, where you can now come out and kind of conduct this session with for other people also, for normal regular people. They don't need to have any kind of they don't need to be people who are working in the field of mental health or something like that. You can take this to anyone. So this is the course that I would definitely recommend: QPR Gatekeeper Instructor or QPR Gatekeeper Training. You can definitely contact them, and you can be a certified instructor, so that you can come out and take these courses. Yeah, so this was the second thing. And again, as I said, is, making using social media to drive a positive impact. This is very important because social media is a tool that we can definitely use for this kind of purposes. I mean, what Let's Talk is doing, what Empathy for You is doing, we are posting out content, we are taking new projects on mental health related things and suicide prevention related things. What you got to know about this webinar is again from social media. So definitely social media can be used to drive a positive impact.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think it was really required.
Yeah.
So another question we have is that, as you said, that we need to recognize that person which pulls us down. So what should be done in such a situation where we know that the person who is pulling us down is really close to us, and that causes a lot of disturbance to our mental peace? So what do we do in that situation?
Yes, this is again very true because everyone has this emotional sensibility when the person is going through something, or the person is feeling something. We also tend to, get affected by what that person is saying or what that person is going through. I'll tell you an example. So when I started with the peer support group 2 years back, at that time I was a newbie to this field, and people used to come and tell me about their experiences, and that really used to have a toll on my mental and emotional health. Like one day there was a girl in the peer support group, and she was saying that she was roaming with a knife in her home for 2 days, because sometimes she has those feelings awakened, and then she has to go to her mental health professional, then she has to take those medications, and then she used to feel okay. So these things, when I used to hear these things, they used to have a different impact, or what would I say, an adverse effect on my mental and emotional health. But at that time, it was like I made myself, I set some personal boundaries. I built a wall between me and those people, that whatever they're telling me, it's going to be there. I'm definitely going to be there and help them in whatever ways I can. But again, I shouldn't make that have an effect on my mental health or my personal health. So setting boundaries is definitely what I would say in this case.
All right. So here we have Denezi. She has a question. Denezi, would you like to unmute yourself and then ask a question, please? Okay, I think Denezi, are you here? Okay. No worries. So we have another question here. Yeah. So is it possible to tell someone that he or she is going to suicide?
Yeah, so I guess I told you some of the warning signs that you can look out for in the person. If that person is showing those signs, then you can, not surely, but you can definitely predict that that person might commit suicide, and then you can start taking those steps that I told you. Might be, reaching out to that person, might be encouraging that person to call a mental health helpline, or um, kind of encouraging that person to, or taking that person to mental health professional. So I told you some of the warning signs in the initially when I started the presentation. Those might be some of the signs that you can definitely look out for a person who is having suicidal thoughts.
All right. Um, I think Denezi is facing some network issues, so I'll just go ahead with the question she asked. So she
Okay.
wanted to know that what if someone is
Hello.
about to commit a hello?
Hello. Yeah, I'm really sorry about. I was having some network
Yeah.
issues, so yeah, I'm extremely sorry about that.
No, no, please go
So
ahead.
yeah, so it was such an interesting presentation out there. Thanks, Shalmari.
Thank
So
you.
I'm actually from Sri Lanka.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I wanted to ask you is like, let's say for example, this person was actually about to commit suicide. So in that case, like
Mhm.
I think like there's no point of like giving counseling or anything, like even talking it out of it. So in
Mhm.
such a case, what would be the most ideal thing to do?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for this question. So when it comes to this kind of thing, most of the times the person is on the verge of kind of killing himself or herself, and at that time we just can't look out for any other options. Like I said, might be taking that person to a therapist or doing all those things. But the first thing I would say is backing up that person, because that is very important. Making sure that the person is kind of, you're boosting the mood of that person, you're listening to that person, you're understanding what that person is going through. um, when it comes to mental health issues, when it comes to suicide issues, listening is the most important thing, and that plays an important role. When it comes to you're understanding someone, or you are getting to know someone, what that person is going through. So listening plays an important role. At that time I would definitely recommend that, because without listening you won't understand what that person is exactly feeling and why he or she is behaving in that way. So that would be the first thing I would say. And the second thing is, again, lifting up that person's spirit, kind of just making himself or herself assure that he or she is not alone, but you are there. Kind of sentences that I told you that you can use while talking. So yeah, I would say those things at that time. And again, encouraging to call mental health helpline, or kind of healthcare helpline is again very important. We again have this kind of issues rooted in the society, that you can't call a helpline, or you can't take help from from calling a helpline. So again, I would definitely encourage you to in turn encourage that person to call a mental health helpline.
Okay, thanks a lot. It was really helpful.
I would
Thank you.
like to add something here, if that is okay with you, Shalmali.
Yeah, definitely, Samantha.
So I feel that whenever someone who is close to you is in that situation, so automatically your first reaction is that we tend to panic a lot, or we get an emotional rush in us. So
Hmm.
at that time, instead of reacting on it or giving importance to that emotional rush, what's important is that we keep that aside, we calm ourselves, we stay calm, and we try to calm them, and offer them a helping hand. So
Yeah,
that is
true.
really important to, keep yourself stable first before helping them.
Yes, that's really true. Again, I would say that just uh, take few deep breaths and start listening to the person again, and start helping that person again. Because uh, taking deep breaths is something that you're feeling calm and relaxed, but you're also accepting what that person is saying. I mean, whatever it is. So definitely start with doing that.
Absolutely. So here we have another question. So in a society where going to a psychologist is considered as a sign of being crazy, how can people approach help?
Yes, definitely. Again, here comes uh, you know the case of stigma and the taboo that is associated. There are some negative beliefs associated in the society. People feel that if you're approaching a therapist, you're being crazy. There's always a fear of judgment, that people start judging you if you approach a therapist, if you approach a counselor. So again, I would say is something that I told you. Let me take out that slide. Yeah. So this again, if you're being vulnerable, that doesn't mean that you're weak, but you can be strong and vulnerable at the same point of time. If you're asking for help, that doesn't make you less resilient, or that doesn't make you weak again, but you can be resilient and ask for help at the same time. So obviously it's going to take a time to change, it's obviously going to take some time to change the perspective of people, and again, normalize all these things that we are trying to do through the organizations, especially. And if look, especially if you take in consideration about the youth, the scenario is changing now. Like, we are approaching this concepts in a more positive way. But when it comes to parents wala generation, the generation which is ahead of us, there are still these negative beliefs associated. Most of the times you'll hear them saying that ये हमारे जमाने में तो नहीं होता था, अभी सब issues start हुए. So most of the times you have people saying this. Most of the times I've also heard that you have such a good house, you have such a good car, you have such a good family, you're well settled, you are studying in a good university, how can you have a mental health issue? I mean, there are so misconceptions in the in the society that people are still aren't educated at least about the basic concepts. So I think it starts from a very grassroots level, and I think it will take time. But again, I would say in the situation that you have to be kind of strong, you have to be more, kind of resilient, and understand that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. Instead, it's a sign of strength, and go ahead, because there's nothing wrong in seeking help or reaching out to someone.
Really well said. So here we have another question. I'll just sum it up. So Janet here first says that this has been a very insightful presentation with a fresh perspective. Thank you, Sharmili, for this.
Thank you.
And yeah, so his question, I'll try to sum it up. And if there's anything else, then you can go ahead and you can ask Janet. So the question here he's trying to ask is that, so when someone who is close to us and we identify symptoms in them of suicidal tendencies, then in that case, if we, go and ask them or try to know about it, they might feel like an emotional burden, or they might not feel comfortable in sharing it. So how to make them feel safe, and how to encourage them to share with us of how they're feeling.
Yeah, this is very nice question. So again, when you are, kind of noticing those signs in that person, the first thing I would suggest is to kind of make that person assure that person that you are there for that person, that that person is not alone, and what you're doing is for that person's, sake of well-being. Most of the times this happens that they are these are the people, or the people who are going through mental health issues, these are the people, they'll not themselves come out and talk about what they're going through. You have to approach them, and if you find those signs within that people, you have to approach them, and you have to kind of start talking, and start that conversation, and then somewhere at some point of time they might tell you about what they're going through. So definitely I would say that just start by assuring them that you are there for them and you are here to offer help to them, and then they might start talking. Also make sure that you are making sure that, as I said, you're listening to them properly, and while you're doing all these things, don't kind of assure something that you won't tell their family about this, you won't tell anyone about this. Don't give any kind of promises, because this is something which is not required in this case. Don't give any kind of promises, because once you go ahead, you are supposed to kind of take that person to a therapist, might be, or you might also have to tell that person's family about what he or she is going through. So don't give any kind of promises when you're doing this. And yeah, I would say that start by assuring that person, and saying that you are here to help.
All right. So here we have another question. So Ujjwala asks that this is a really important question, I feel. So she says that how can we normalize seeking help for mental issues for people who need it? As in some situations, convincing does not help.
Yeah, that's very true. When it comes to if convincing isn't helping, I would say that at least try giving them some examples, like, okay, I had a friend, she also went through the same situation, but she approached a professional, and this is how she's feeling right now. Tell your own stories. If you have kind of approached a therapist earlier, so start by sharing those experiences, because most of the times people feel that relatable when we talk about other people, when we talk about their experiences. So that might help. Also sometimes when it comes to kind of normalizing this type of things, when it comes to your family, when it comes to your friends, um, try also kind of getting them in contact, first of all, when it comes to not actually a therapist, but peer support groups are things where you know they are absolute strangers, where you don't have anyone who you just have to speak your heart out. I mean, that is what we are doing through Empathy for You. We have a peer support group that anyone can come and we are there as a team. We don't kind of tell them the advice, we don't give them the advice that do this, do that, but we are here and we kind of tell them that we kind of just give them that support and that love and that empathy that is required at that point of time. So even if they don't want to go, if they are not comfortable to go to a therapist, or if they're not if you are not able to convince them, then at least take them to the peer support group. There are also a few therapists who give therapy on a call, so even that is something that you can do.
I think that pretty well answers your question.
Yeah.
So I think some of us have missed out on the name of the course and the organization you mentioned. So can you please repeat that?
So the course is QPR Gatekeeper Training, or you can, or it is also, there are two different courses basically. QPR Gatekeeper Training, you just when you take this course, you become a gatekeeper, where you will understand what exactly suicide is, and how you can prevent suicide, how you can help community in preventing suicides. This is what you get through that course. Whereas when we talk about QPR Gatekeeper Instructor course, here you become a certified instructor, where you can now come out and take courses in the community about in training other QPR gatekeepers. So yeah, so here you can this course is available on Suicide Prevention India ka website. This is an organization which is based in Bangalore. You can find them on Instagram also with the name of Suicide Prevention India.
All right. Thank you so much, Shalmili. Is there any other question you want to ask? We can take two more questions, I think, and then we'll have to end it. Anyone who wants to ask anything? Khushbu says, thank you so much for this amazing session.
Thank you, Khushbu. Glad you loved it.
Okay, yes. So we have another question here. So Abhishek asks that can you also talk a bit about how especially families living in denial about any family member suffering from mental health issues, how they can, understand about this, or how they can develop a very empathetic approach towards someone who is suffering through a mental illness or going to suicidal tendencies.
Yes, this is very important because, as I said, like I told you a perspective of one of the aunties. I've heard her saying this, that you have such a good house, you have such a good car, you are studying in a good university, your family is well settled, you are well settled. How can you go through a mental health issue? I mean, this is the perspective of the people out there, that not understanding what mental health is. And I think as I said, the problem is deep rooted. I mean, it starts from the grassroots level. See, from our schools itself, we are taught about you have to brush your teeth, you have to get a shower daily in order to maintain your personal hygiene. But we are never taught about, what our feelings are, what our emotions are. Why there's also something called as mental hygiene that we have to maintain. So we are never taught about this, and I feel, this is where the problem starts. Like, this is the main reason why we don't even know about the basic concepts about mental health. I feel the problem is deep rooted, and that is why I started a petition to the government asking to include SEL, that is social and emotional learning, as a subject in the curriculum of schools and colleges. I don't know how this is going to move ahead, but at least a small effort that we can do. And again, I would say that if you understand what mental health is, if you understand what, if you know those basic concepts, if you have at least a base literacy about mental health, then you can on yourselves take those baby steps. I mean, I don't mean to say that you have to come out and host campaigns and projects and start spreading awareness, but you can take those baby steps of, at least when you know about mental health, you can come out and educate your family about that. You can come out and start conversation about mental health in your friend circle. At least we can take those baby steps, right, in order to build that great movement where where we as a community are going to eradicate that stigma and destigmatize mental health. So I would say that we all have to take those baby steps and come ahead and be a contribution in that movement.
Really well put, Shalmili. Thank you so much. I think we are going to end the webinar now. We are already 13 minutes late. It was really interesting to have you here. And yes, we are going to share a feedback form with all of you. And if that's okay, Shalmali, we are going to share your contact details as well so that if anyone wants to approach you or if anyone wants to volunteer for empathy for you, they can easily contact you directly.
Yes, definitely you can share that.
Right. All right. Then I think we're done for today. Thank you so much, Shalmali. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being there. Thank you for asking so many questions. I mean, I always find out an audience who is interactive and who keep on asking questions. So thank you for being such a great audience. Thank you for being a lovely host, Samantha. That was really lovely to have a conversation with you. And again, thank you. Let's Talk a team. Thank you for having me for this webinar. I hope that was useful for everyone.
Yes, indeed, it has been. Thank you so much. Take care. Yes, you'll have to fill out the feedback form and then we'll just send you the certificates as soon as they're ready. Yes, thank you, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Take care.